land acknowledgement. The PSBA is committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity work. As an organization based in Tacoma, Washington, we acknowledge the Puyallup tribe and invite you to visit the official website of the Puyallup and listen to their land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of the land and beyond.
Hi, everyone. Reading Velma's CV, you would learn that she's an artist, teacher, collaborator, and maker. She retired from teaching special education classes in 2016, and she currently works with Shifu, a spun and woven paper textile, Botanical Contact Printing, or eco-printing, on paper and textiles, and teaches workshops and classes in those techniques, as well as paper making and book arts in North America and Australia. I've talked with her at book fairs and purchased some of her distinctive eco-dyed papers, and it has been a joy to connect with her as we prepared for this talk. It's one of the benefits of this volunteer position. So thank you, Velma. She comes to us from way northern New York State in the western Adirondack Mountains. She set up her paper and fiber studio, Wake Robin, in the North Country in the 1980s, where she works and collaborates with the plant world to make rich and unusual dyed papers. Join me in welcoming Velma to talk with us about the wild abundance of her work.
Thank you, Suzanne. And that's very sweet. I too would like to just very briefly make a land acknowledgement. I live on lands that were once the part of the Mohawk Nation, and which is the peoples that were in charge of the eastern door of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and just want to acknowledge that. So my title is Wild Abundance. This is new for me, trying to do this with some sort of fluency. So I will just begin here. So wild abundance seemed to really describe what happens to me in the studio when I'm printing paper. And when Suzanne just first contacted me, she asked me about the prints. And I will just bring up one very interesting sidetrack, I guess, is that lots of people call this eco-printing. Some people call it botanical contact printing. People call it all kinds of things. But I will give acknowledgement to my teacher, who is India Flint, who really popularized this whole technique. I like to call it Where Plants Dance. And what you're looking at right now is me unbundling a print. It's halfway taken apart. On the left, you see the image from what's happening on the right, and that is an old grater and some plant bits. You can probably pick out little bits of plants that you can see, and yeah, so if anybody guessed, I think I've got dandelions and ferns in there. And the blue, little bit of blue on the other side is probably some wild grape. Next, please. Tim Ely says, like most really good sacred books, this one is blank. I make a lot of books. A lot of them are blank. And a lot of them are blank, but meant to be used by others. But they often have lots of stuff in them already. I have been paying attention to the people that are looking at marginalia in medieval books and old books of many kinds, and the notes and the things that are left in old books. And I realize I'm probably part of that tribe of people. I want people to add to my books if they so desire. So what you're looking at is a piece of Lokta paper that I've written on and begun to prepare it for making kami ito, which is a spun piece of paper. I was trained as a weaver. I began thinking about how could I weave book pages, and about that time I learned about shifu and making spun paper. So this was a piece of paper that I prepared in one of my first workshops, and I spun it up, and I have no idea what it ended up being, but it got spun into a book page anyway, somewhere. It might even be in Ohio still. Next, please. Kamiito, which is the Japanese word for the spun paper, on 3 different drop spindles. And you can see just how beautiful it is. I believe this paper that you're looking at is all kozo, and instead of the Lokta that you saw on the former page. I like to try different kinds of papers. And what's really required for making kami ito that actually holds together and can be woven, can have a little bit of manipulation without it either tearing or breaking, is you need a really long fiber. And so Lokta has a beautiful long fiber, as does, of course, many of the washis, and beautiful kozos. And so I can't tell you which one it is right there, but which one they are on. But I wanted to try the different spindles and to see each spindle has a slightly different weight, and to see which one would work best with the paper that I had prepared. Next one, please. And here you can see my very, very fancy loom. This is how I make an integral page. And my thought about weaving in this manner is to weave 4 salvages, to weave a complete textile that is just what it meant. It's not going to be cut, it's not going to be shaped, it's not going to be changed. It is what it is when I take it off the loom, and that is a book page. So the first one I made, I did on a piece of just a chunk of wood. And I have used this little stump loom for, I think it's probably 30 years now. And I also have probably 10 or 15 more of different sizes and shapes. Next, please. And that's what I make. So those are 4 different book pages. So the couple things that I'd like you to notice are the irregularities in the weave, and that comes from me allowing the places where when I spin the thread, it goes up and around the corner, and there's more material at the corner. So that becomes what is called in Japan, what's referred to as a rice seed. And I'm sorry, I don't know the right name for that. But I often let those clumps just be what they are. And sometimes they actually are like little flags. Most of my books take between 7 and maybe, I think in one case, 31 pages. So this is quite a bit of weaving time and spinning time and cutting time to make each page. Next, please. So those are the first 3 books that I made with my stump loom. And I've also always been really, really interested in old books, and particularly old, I guess I would like to call them quirky books or unusual books, or books that can't be figured out maybe even books that can't be read or sorted. And there's a part of me that doesn't like that as well, that wants the story. So I'm a little bit conflicted, but each one of these were kind of precious to me. The yellow one at the top is my very first one. I actually have it on the table next to me to bring me a little bit of good luck to because I'm a little out of my comfort zone. That yellow one is called Spring Walk, and it's about just an early spring walk that I took up where I lived for about 35 years, not in my current house, which is about 3 miles from my old place. The book is in itself, are all three of these books are stationer's bindings, and I learned that technique. You will also see that I like to acknowledge my teachers. Chayla Metzger taught this technique to a class that I was privileged to be a part of at Syracuse University. And I took off. I loved the idea that you can add to a book that's already there. So when I teach this technique to other students, I tell them that it is essentially a 3-ring binder, medieval style, that is quite incorrect, but it gets the idea across. Each one of these has a vellum cover, which also is traditional, and vellum tabs that they are sewn on, and they're actually tacketed on to the vellum tapes. And there's a poem in each one. Next one, please. And here you see what happens when I decided to try to make that loom, a different loom, accommodate another technique that's called slot and tab or slip and slide. And so each one of the textiles that was woven on that loom had either one slit in the center or 2 slits in the top and the bottom. The signatures or sections that had the 2 slits would essentially have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 salvages. And why all of these salvages, and why not cut it, and why is Velma so obsessed with this idea of an integral textile? So I was a textile design student, and I fell in love with the ancient Peruvian textiles quite a bit after I was done schooling and had children and had a farm and all of that stuff. And then I discovered this whole idea of salvage weaving. Of course, I was familiar with Navajo weaving, which is the same thing, only a different dimension. And maybe with the same sort of spiritual value that the textile is itself. It doesn't need anything else to make it be what it is. I'm not sure I can get that across. I understand that, but it's really hard for me to communicate this. So anyway, I decided to make 2 different books, Paper Thoughts, and another book that was botanically contact printed or eco-printed. It was dyed, and it was called Blood-Written Violet. And that book is in the Bima collection, I think. And it's quite interesting in that I was able to take the shifu, put it in a bundle with plants, with pressure, with metals in water, and dye it. And I had intact pages, or actually sections, that I was able to use afterwards. I only had 1 tear, and so that wasn't so bad. That was early on in I can't even believe I was bold enough to do that at the time, because it was really scary. But when you don't know that you could possibly be wasting weeks of time of work, you just go ahead and try it. So Paper Thoughts was the book that came out of that. Next one, please. This is a rock book. So I've been talking about different threads, paper, books, weaving, and this was, and so I walk a lot. I like to go out walking, and I'm not a big hiker, although I've done some big hikes, but I'm a walker. And so this book here was built from the idea of finding a big split rock. And this book is only maybe 8 inches in the largest diameter. But then I also, it was a naturally split rock that I traced, and I built decals for my paper from different molds, and I made shaped paper sections. And so it's a long stitch, and then I wove on the spine. So I felt like I was beginning to get it all together. So there are rocks from my place. There is paper that I made in my studio. It has a lot of plants in it. And then I got to weave on it as well. What could be better? This book is not really particularly easy to move around because it's pretty heavy, but it's not the biggest. So this was number, I guess this was number 4, or maybe number 2. Anyway, there's another one that's much bigger that I can't even lift myself. Next one, please. And that's another rock book. This one is number 2. The first one you saw was number 4. Number 2 is huge. Well, it's not that huge. There's number 1 is really big. And each of there aren't any sections. They're all loose leaves in there. Some of them have stitching on them. Some of them are dyed. Yeah, it's an old. These things you're seeing now are, I would dare say, between 20 and 30 years old. Next one, please. So here I was asked by Caliban Press. My friend Mark McMurray runs Caliban Press, and Mark asked me to do a bunch of prints for his Adirondack Sutra that he was making. And so I think this is about 60 prints, all laid out on the floor. And you can see the wide variety of things that are happening. And all of the things that are happening are happening either as resist or as direct dye, or as a result of the metals that are in the bundles of paper and the tightening of the paper. In many cases, it's wrapped. Next, please. And this is just this is actually related to the very first one that you saw. This is just a print, and you can see the circle on the bottom might be a familiar sight to some of you. That is just a can lid. Many can lids in my in my bunch of metals that I use when I'm dyeing. Next, please. This book is quite large. Not quite large. It's quite large for me. I like small books. I like books that I can hold in my hands. This book is about 12 inches. Maybe it's I don't know, 9.5 by 9 by 12, something like that. And it is a loom woven piece of shifu. So the cover is shifu, so spun and woven paper, but it was woven on a floor loom, so it's a bit wider. I think it's within the natural, the dimensions of kimono width cloth, although I'm not good with numbers. About 13 inches, maybe it's 13 inches or 14 inches. I took that big piece of shifu, and I folded it up with the metals in there and the plants in there, and I was really scared that I was going to lose the whole thing. and I dyed it, and it came out with these wonderful shapes. So it has 12 moons on it. And the next one, please, Suzanne. And that's just an interior. So you can see a printed piece of artist text wove. And before I put it into the dye bath, I had actually done some mark making with a big graphite chunk just to see what would happen. There's also a bit of silk. The end sheets are a big piece of silk that I also printed. I keep using the word, so eco print, eco dye, contact print. I use them interchangeably. I hope it's not too confusing. Next, please, Suzanne. This is a special book made for a special friend. This is I call it the Wendy book. Wendy, a friend, asked me to make a book. Well, she asked me to send her some handmade paper for her work with children. She's a therapist who works with, at that time, worked with children who had been working through trauma. So this is the book that I made for her and for the children. And it too is a stationer's binding, and you can see the tackets on the spine, and it's woven loom woven shifu. The little bit of color was from a big bubbly vat of rusted horseshoes that I had outside my studio. Vinegar and water and horseshoes and thyme made this amazing kind of scary looking vat full of dye. And I used it for, I'm going to say, 15 or 16 years on and off. So that's the cover. Next, please. Inside is a note from Wendy, one of Wendy's children. And the most magical thing was the book would carry things for the children or carry messages for people. And I love this. And you can see there are botanical papers inside it. Next, please.
Wow.
This was the first time this book is called November Song. A lot of my books have November in them. I don't know why. Well, it's my birth month, maybe. But November Song is or it's also called a North Country hortus-siccus. Hortus-siccus is a dry garden, which is an herbarium, which is what I think of about my prints. And so I have been dyeing these, and this is all artist text wove. The cover is actually not my paper, it's cave paper. And Carol Blinn, who runs Warwick Press, saw this book. I took it to her and saw it, and she held it and said, Velma, you must build this, you must build a box for this. I have the perfect person for you. And she actually wrote a wonderful, a little essay that is included in this book. I think the edition is only 2. But yeah, I don't often do things that have very many copies. Next, please. And here's just a sample so you can see some of the things that happens. This is on Kozo, actually. This one is, so these days I often use artist text wove or awagami Kozos. And sometimes Amagami's bamboo papers. They are really sturdy papers. They take a lot of abuse, quote unquote, but they can also withstand me dyeing them and then going on to the next step of somebody else binding a book with them or printing on top of them or doing something else. And so I love selling these to other artists and then finding out what they do with my paper. It makes me very happy to see that. Next, Suzanne. So this book is a little book about shifu and botanical pressure printing. We went back and forth, Carol and I, about what to call eco printing BOCO printing, botanical contact printing, and we called it botanical pressure printing for this book. Carol, I wrote a little essay, and Carol designed the book. And of course, you can see her beautiful, is it called typography? I'm such a neophyte with the word part of things. And she also designed it so in the very inside, there's a tiny, I think it's 3/4 of an inch square piece of shifu that hangs from the center tie from the pamphlet stitch in the centers. There are also photographs tipped in. And I made this book when I was invited to go to Australia to teach, and I made that to take with me. And I sold all of them in Australia, which was really lovely. And I like to think that they're making their way all through Australia. I've sold many since. It's currently out of print because I can't quite manage to do anymore. But yeah, it was really fun to do. Working with a designer, a book designer is amazing because I don't have the type of typography skills that someone like Carol or Mark McMurray have. I just don't have those skills. Next, please. 3 little books. The top 2 I designed and made. The top one is a flax notion, and it's all flax paper that I made. And then each color that you see is the color of a pigmented flax sample inside that's also sewn on. The second one is Poor Woman's Asparagus, and it is about milkweed. So milkweed is a key plant in my world. It began to be something very important to me just about this time. I was fortunate enough to be able to take a summer class with John Green, Dr. John Green at St. Lawrence University. And John introduced, we had a crazy class. There was a 14-year-old girl. There was me, a new mom, and 3 football guys. And we went out in the woods, and we also had to gather food, and we cooked wild foods together. And John introduced me to he called it poor man's asparagus. I altered that a little bit, and was able to taste this. And so in early spring, you can eat the unripened flower. So while it's still green, head just like asparagus. That's something I would never do now because we need the milkweed to go through its whole cycle. But in those days, I did it. And so the cover is also milkweed paper. The bottom one is 24 nests, and it's a little story I wrote about collecting birds' nests in the winter after songbirds' nests in the winter, and making paper out of them. It was a very smelly, icky vat of pulp, as you can imagine, because birds' nests have, well, things that are inside animals in them. So it was pretty awful. But anyway, Carol Blinn asked me if she could publish it, and she did. And so that was the first time I had any experience with having something I made be taken on by someone else and made into something even better than what I had been doing. So there's a sample of bird's nest paper in each little narrative. Next, please. So this is November, a map, and back to the November thing. Next, please. And that's what it looks like, the book itself. It's a meander book. It's one, and I have fallen madly in love with mapping techniques. I use them a great deal. I love how a very small book can become really big and then go back to being very small. This just fascinates me. So I worked with Mark McMurray and we did this. It's each one of the books is a half sheet of Arches text wove. And I think, I don't know, somebody probably out there knows what the whole sheet is about, I don't know, 30 by 40, something like 38 by 42. And so the half sheet is pretty hard to print. But it's just a challenge. Next one, please. Another print. Maybe you can spot a sink drain in there. Next one, please. This book is Indigo Patterns, and the outside is Shifu, believe it or not, with slippery elm bark in it. And it's also a stationer's binding of sorts. It's got and the inside of pattern is pattern paper that I dyed in an indigo dye bath. Next, please. And 4 little books of prints, and each one of them holds maybe a section that is 6 or 8 pieces, and maybe 6 pieces of flax paper, different colors, just to show you some of the varieties of prints. Next, please. This book is Detritus. Detritus is actually 3 books. I took this one apart and made it, it's actually a smaller book now, but there are 3 of them because I did, so the poem exists and I made, oh, to show the next one, please, Suzanne, where everybody can see what happens here with this book. So that's the spine on the big thick one. One more, please. And these are the sections. And so it's a slot and tab, and each one of those bunches you can actually slot them together and make an addition. It seems like, or a volume, it seems like magic to me. The fabric is a triple woven silk, and I did sort of count how many stitches I made to do all of this, and I forgot the number because it was too big. Next, please. And just some handmade paper and some little piece of shifu and some kami ito. Flax paper, and the flax is all pigmented with indigo and ochres. Next, please. That's my old studio. It's not where I'm working now, but that was the one I worked in for 34 years, and with paper drying on the window. I love the reflection in the vat. Next, please. I do some real odd prints. On the right, you see some pink or red, and then a little tiny bit of almost green. That is very hard to make happen with Boko printing. But on the left is also a print that's hard to make. I found a dead bird that was in good enough shape, and it felt okay to ink the bird up and print with it. So I made one print and then I buried it. Next, please. Just some more prints. You can see a wide variety. These are more recent ones. You can see probably quite a bit more action. I was telling Suzanne that I liked the description of some rock and roll guy that used to call whatever he did in the studio a wall of sound. Well, this is like a wall of stuff. So prints, all of my favorite things. This these prints tell me that they were made in late summer because of the echinacea that you can see that printed very clearly. And also there's quite a bit of wild grape in there. Next, please. This is just a little, the top edge of a book I really love. It's got an indigo dyed shifu cover. It's got milkweed and flax pages and a flax interior as well. I guess that's called the end sheet. It's so the shifu is sewn to a big sheet of flax. And it's just pretty, and it also makes an amazing sound, which I can't share with you. Next. This is a book that I'm working on this idea right now. So this is an Asian map fold, and the book has a cover that the text block fits right into. Next, please. And you can see what happens. You can see it laid down. It's beginning to open. We're opening up one section. Next one, Suzanne. And it's opening more. Next one. And all the way inside, you can see another little piece of paper. And that piece inside is a piece of milkweed paper. It's milkweed that I put through the beater rather than hand beating, which is what I normally do with milkweed. But it's a white sheet. So that inside there is where you can put your treasure. So you can see it's very, very well protected, your little treasure. And this book can hold, I think, 5 treasures. Next one.
What size is it closed, Velma?
It is about the size of a cell phone, only fatter.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So these are, yeah, and that's Awagami Kozo. And here's my baby. This is milkweed. Next, please. My favorite. I'm a little bit over the top about milkweed lately. So these are milkweed papers of different vintage. You can see everything from white to a greenish gray to a really gray. So I am making paper here out of milkweed bast. I also sometimes make paper from the seed fiber, which is called coma, and that usually makes a pale yellow paper that is really beautiful and would have been nice in this shot had I gotten it out. But in any case, I love to make different sizes of paper on different molds that I have. And without it becoming trite, sometimes it gets trite and you have to get away from that. But so yeah, anyway, next one, please. Those are milkweed fibers. So on the far left is retted, field retted fiber. You can see it's grayed, it's a little softer. It's what I would normally use for making paper. Excuse me. The center, the white in the center is some of the shorter of the bast fibers. The bast fibers run along the stem of the plant and under the outside coating and over the woody interior. And the bast fibers, I'm not a botanist. I can't tell you from that point of view much more about them, except that I know that they are strong. And they are other ones that you might be more familiar with, of course, would be linen or hemp or nettle. Flax happens to have chosen me, I think. On the far right, small and large stump loom weavings with my twined milkweed. So the twining is just, I'm spinning them. I'm doing a 2-ply spinning at the same time. So twining is a traditional basketry technique. Next, please. And there's a close-up of me of a weaving of milkweed. You can see it looks kind of wild and rough, just the way milkweed really is. When you see it in the wild. I love the variation in color. It's very strong. It's also, when you want to make paper with it, when you begin to beat it, that incredible strength that you see there gets sort of tamed. And the fibers, when I make milkweed paper, I have never made a paper that is particularly strong, but fairly strong. I don't know how to rate it, but it's surprisingly tough stuff.
So you
Next.
have a
Oh,
question about the processing the milkweed. Would you like to answer that now
Yeah,
or
sure.
later?
Yeah, that's fine. What's the question?
So the question is, do you put all the milkweed parts into the beater?
No, no. It would depend on what I'm doing. If I'm going to beat it, I don't often use the Hollander for milkweed. I often hand beat it. So when I'm working with the bast fibers, I'm hand beating, just like you see people working with Kozo. I've got two mallets and I'm hand beating them. Um, the coma, which is the seed fiber, makes a lovely paper, and that goes into the beater for a really short time. And you have to really pay attention. I can't remember exactly how long it is, but it's very, very quickly. It comes up very quickly. And if it goes too long, then you get porridge, um, which you don't want to eat. I don't have time to tell you how I got poisoned by milkweed last year, but suffice it to say, you don't want to eat it later in the year. You can only eat it early if you want to make the asparagus-like food. Next, please. The plants teach you things. And this is a book I'm working on. These two, no, that's fine, Suzanne. These two slides are bone. It's bone that I found. It's a deer shoulder bone. And I carved two little rectangles, and then I made a loom that would suit suit the size of the bone, but also my head is racing. Each one of these sheets, these pages, is one length of thread. And what that means is that I spun and spun and spun, and then I I warped the loom and I began weaving. And as I ran out of thread, because that's a really long thing, to make, I mean, even though it's a small book, it's a long piece of string. So I had to continue spinning while I was weaving. And that's a process I've been doing to kind of, again, make each page one thread beginning and ending in the page. And I know that seems maybe a little over the top, but it really seems important for some reason that each one is just itself. Yeah. So you can see a little thread hanging out. Oops. You can see a little thread hanging out of each one of them. That's where it ends, and I let it show because the end is a closed circle. So anyway, go ahead, Suzanne. Three little books, the little bone, and you see the little milkweed book on top has grown two more pages. The other two books are all chifu paper and board, and the amazing friend Shauna Leno sent me some wonderful milk paint, and I have been working with the milk paints, and they are really different. It's like I tend to choose these difficult things to work with, but they're so interesting. So
And what size would the bigger ones of these be?
about 2 by 3.5 or 2.5 by 3.5, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Next, please, Suzanne. Oh, so yeah, that's where it lives. It's got its own little not knotless netted bag. It's still not bound. And it still doesn't have a story, but it might. So we'll see what happens with this book.
So
Next, please.
how did you attach the pages to the covers?
They're not yet.
Oh, okay.
My plan is to drill holes, and to do it properly, I would have to drill a diagonal hole. The proper, I guess it's the Byzantine binding, I know people call it Coptic. All of you people who know much more about books than me, would know the correct term. Anyway, to do it properly, it needs it needs courage. I need to be courageous to drill through that deer shoulder. I can drill a straight hole, but to do the straight and then that diagonal one, I don't know. So I haven't done it yet. I'm a little afraid. And this is a piece that I really like. This is a one I did last summer. And I did a whole series of eco prints, boko prints with milkweed leaves. So that's a big milkweed leaf, and you can see a couple of washers in there. You can see some wild grape. You can see onion skin. You can see, or I can see some bed straw. And who will I don't always know, and I used to keep lists of all of the plants I used in every session of dyeing, but it got to be too crazy to do. So now I just do the work. Next, please. So this is another series I'm working on. I'm working with some wool felt. This is industrial felt, and probably you all can recognize the sumac leaf on the outside. And next one, please. And that's the interior. This is a technique called bridling. I don't know. It's something I wasn't familiar with. My friend Amy Lee taught me this. And it's really, I think it really works well with these sort of like specimens, sort of like an herbarium, the specimens. So I like what's happening. I'm just beginning to mess around with these. Next one. Oh, Suzanne, this one's bigger, by the way. Yeah, that's about 6 by 8. So it's a little bigger than a lot of what I do. Yeah. Next one. So if you look carefully here, you see some stitching across the sheet. And so this is another thing I do is I do things to the paper before it goes into the dye bundle. And I also sometimes mess around with different papers, which I can talk about later. But sometimes I leave that stitch in. Sometimes I stitch with a different fiber. So cellulose fiber is what the bundle is made out of. I'm guessing that's silk that I stitched with. And so when you're mixing cellulose and protein in the dye bath, different things happen and it can become very exciting. Next, please. This is more of the felt with a part of a piece that I made I think it was last fall. My friend asked me to make a necklace that was similar to a necklace that she'd had before. And so this is French knitting. I have a little spool with 6 nails on the top. And I think a lot of us did this when we were little kids. They call it French knitting when you do it with knitting needles. So you knitters probably know more about this than I do. And that's paper. Next, yep. And here's another one. This one you can see all of at the bottom of the paper, all of these long marks, and those were where that bundle was actually wrapped around something and tied. And so those strings are the marks of where they were tied. And you can see sumac there. Next, please. Oh, this looks like it might be big, but it's very small. It's so these papers are business card size, and they are flax with either indigo or ochre, and it has a shifu cover, and I call these boingy books because they're very, very springy. Next one. I also have been messing around with, so I come from, I loved only when I was younger, wool and silk. protein. And then I fell for cellulose. So it's a crazy relationship. These are wild silks, silk cocoons. These are tiny ones. They're about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and they're from tussock moths. And their season is a very short one, and then they leave these cocoons around, which nobody uses except me. And I gather them up. And then, Suzanne, can you do it again? And that's a ball of yarn I made from the tussock silk. It's very irregular. It's very clunky. It's kind of weak, so I usually ply it if I weave with it or do anything more strenuous than just look at it and carefully play with it. But it does hold together, just not really strong. Next, please. And these are Cecropia cocoons. So I was just reading. So Cecropias are our largest giant silk moth in the North America. And they have a wingspan of, I think it's up to 6 or 7 inches. And I raise these. And I have a person in Prince Edward Island who can source these for me. And next one, please, Suzanne. And there's a female that I raised, I don't know which year, but fairly recently. Aren't they beautiful? They're very scary to hold because they are strong. They grab on with their feet. And it feels when one of them crawls on your hand and grabs your finger, it feels like you're going to be taken away by this winged creature. It's amazing. Next, please. More prints. These are really early prints. So we went from earlier to current back to some old ones, but I wanted you to maybe sort of recall the difference between the older ones and the new ones. And some people have definite preferences. Some people don't care. I will also tell you that this paper is Argus text wove. Next one, Suzanne. This is a book that I had at the last codex I went to. It is called Book of Bones. When I moved to my current house, I found the remains of a red fox, and I have the part of the skull and the leg bones and the vertebrae. So I looked at it for a while, left it in the yard over the winter and looked at it. It was decayed, but when I first saw it, there was very little fur left. Much of it had been eaten by other people, other animals. And so I gathered the bones up and I brought them in the house. And I'm going to tell you this, that I have to do it when it feels right. So I really pay attention. If the bones don't want to go with me, I know it. I'm just paying attention. That's all I'm doing. If it feels right, I do it. If it doesn't feel right, then I might even take them and bury them or toss them in the woods or something else. But this case, I gathered them all up. And so I made 3 of these books. They're kind of special because the pages are made out of the same fiber as the basket that's holding them. And those are retired fishing nets. They're made of ramie, they're Asian, and I buy them through a place in Kyoto. I don't know how I find these things, but I did. And the Book of Bones there are 3 of these books. Each page was woven as a section. It's just one pamphlet, and it's woven on a stump loom as well. Can you turn next, please? So you can see inside. This is between 2 pages, and I have a better shot somewhere of this, but this is one that was taken at BEMA, and I couldn't find it just disappeared. Anyway, so the Book of Bones has a lot of oomph to it. It also makes noise. So when you open this book, all these bones clatter. And I really love that. they demand attention. Next, please. This is my latest thing that I'm working on. So you see a scroll that is a Shifu scroll. It is some beautiful paper from Washi Arts and a little tiny pot that I didn't make, but came from about 3 miles from here. This is local clay that my friend Rachel Jones from St. Lawrence made for me, and she made me 3 of these, and 2 of the scrolls are Shifu, and I'm actually right now weaving the 3rd one, which is milkweed, and I will probably embroider on them. I have parts of poems coming. Thank you, Suzanne. So you can see those 2 are finished. Well, not finished. They're almost finished. But it's really wonderful that this local clay has this incredible pink, beautiful color to it. Next, please. And just some more prints.
Yeah, we are getting at 1 o'clock, so you may want to think about if you want a little time to answer questions at the end.
Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne. That's just Japanese indigo. We'll just go through these, some more prints and codex. This is what I love to do, is talk to people. We don't need to watch this. This is too long.
Oh, this is really essential, though, I think.
Okay, all right.
I had no idea this is how you did this.
This is the end of it. This is taking it out of the pot. That's hot, hot water.
This is the magic part. Although it looks dark and muddy. Learn to be really sort of organized and methodical. Hot water in there. Oh, there we go. The first bit. I just used this time wild grapes, onion skin, staghorn sumac, and then goldenrod and some purple. Smells like onion soup.
Suzanne, is it okay for me to talk?
Is it burned?
Yeah. So this is very, very hot. It's also really, really messy and big. This piece of paper is half sheet of Arches Text Wove, and there are pieces of metal that are falling out. It was really hard to learn how to handle the paper so it wouldn't shred. That's all I wanted to say, Suzanne.
Velma said when we were talking that she gets colors that you're not supposed to get. And I said, that I guess are really difficult to get. And I said, well, do you think that might come with a particular relationship you have with the plants? Have you thought any more about that, Velma?
I think it's probably because I'll try to I'll just match them up with things they probably wouldn't be next to out on the land. And also with the assists from the metals, which are providing a mordant, a very mild mordant, rather than, I don't use any powdered mordants. I just won't use strong chemistry, because, well, first of all, you have to get rid of the water and the dye stuff, and that I can't do that here. I have a septic system or the land. And theoretically, you could probably drink the dye bath. Not that anybody would or should. I would not let them, but theoretically, it's safe. Except if it's got milkweed in it that could poison you. I don't use poisonous plants that I know of, but milkweed in the plant bundle is an exception. Or in the paper bundle, sorry.
There is a question about how you did the woven binding on rock book too.
It's just it was bound on tapes, like you would if you were going to build a little sketchbook of your own. And then those tapes are loose on the inside, but then it's just decorative. The weaving that you see is decorative only. It's not part of the function of the book. It's actually sewn onto tapes. Does that I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you, Velma. And for those of you interested in this type of work, before this series even began, the group had started to talk with Rebecca Chamley about teaching a workshop this coming fall. And so she's going to do that. And it's a weekend workshop where you will do eco dyeing and then make non-adhesive books. So that's coming up September 19th and 20th. And then our next presenter to end the year with this color series is a cyanotype and book artist from Maine, Rachel Church. And she's going to join us June 11th. So thank you very much, Velma. And I want to encourage everyone to remind friends that if they're interested in things like this, that this talk will be on YouTube because there's so much content with the spinning and weaving and book design and the color. Yeah.
And somebody put in that Velma will be teaching her North Country Shifu this summer in Blaine. So
Linda,
oh my gosh.
yeah, Linda has invited me to come out. So yes.
When is that, Velma? I didn't know that.
No, we haven't firmed up a date yet, but we're aiming for summer and earlier in the summer, maybe June or July, maybe June.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we just started talking about that, and I've wanted, I love coming to the Pacific Northwest. You guys have a beautiful place to live, and you're very I don't know, you're a lovely group. And this group was the first big group that I actually presented to 15 years ago. So that's pretty neat.